Hi, my name is Tyler, aka Thrifts and Tangles. Today I wanted to sit down and share some tips on how to find an apartment in LA. I posted an apartment tour video that blew up. I am so grateful that you guys even cared to look at my apartment. I tried really hard to decorate this apartment, so I'm glad you all liked it. But if you haven't seen that video, I posted it right here. But the main question I got in those comments for that video were, how did you find your apartment? So I'm gonna give you my tips for how to find an apartment in LA. I moved here from Vegas 2 years ago, so moving here from out of town is like a totally different experience from maybe if you already live here or if you live maybe in a different city in California. Like I totally moved states. So I hope these tips help you find an apartment that suits your needs. And yeah, let's get into the tips. The first tip is to figure out when do you want to move. Have a timeline in your head. So when I was moving, I said in the beginning of June, I wanted to move by the end of August. So in my head, I was ready like mentally to move, and I knew I would have to be prepared at that time. And I'll talk more about like how to prepare a little bit later. So after you figure out when you want to move, you can start figuring out what amenities do you want. Do you want an in-unit washer and dryer? Do you want parking? Do you want a full fridge? Do you want a certain amount of square footage? Whatever those amenities are, make a list and prioritize your amenities. Get realistic about what you actually want and be ready to settle, because the apartments here, unless you're willing to pay for it, it's really hard to find the amenities that you're looking for unless you luck out. My third tip is to set an ideal budget. My budget originally was $1,000, and when I realized I wasn't able to get anything that I actually wanted for that price point, I had to up my budget to $1,200. And I did that because I looked at some apartments in Koreatown and the apartment didn't come with parking, and I had a car. And I realized I couldn't even look at the apartment because I couldn't find parking. And my mom and I drove around for almost an hour trying to find parking, and I was like, this just is not going to work. And that was with my $1,000 budget. So I upped my budget to $1,200 and was able to find apartments that were a little nicer. So once you figured out when you want to move, you figured out what amenities you want, and you figured out your budget, you can start looking at all of the apps for finding an apartment. So I actually have it written down here. The apps that I used for apartment hunting was I used apartments.com, the Rental Girl, HotPads, that's actually where I found my apartment listed, rent.com, Zumper, Craigslist, and Trulia. You will want to be active on every single one of those apps, and you will be wanting to look at those apps all day, every day. Update it constantly, because apartments go really quickly in LA, and you might see an apartment listed on Monday, and then by Wednesday it's gone. So just have a list of apartments that you like, or you maybe are interested in, or are thinking about visiting in person, and save them, and then keep checking and check for more, because the turnover here is something I have never even, I was mind blown. People tell you about it, but when you actually experience it, like there was an apartment where it was, I thought it was overpriced. It was like 100 square feet. It was, I think they wanted like, I think it was $1,300 for 100 square feet. I called and said, hey, you know, I'm interested in this apartment. And they were like, they had just listed it that morning. They're like, oh, it's gone. I'm just like, what? Like, you got to be on top of it. So be on all the apps. And HotPads is where I found my apartment, but all the apps are good. Like, no app is better than the other. So my next tip is to decide on which area you want to live in. LA is broken into like different neighborhoods, which I'm still new here. I'm still learning the neighborhoods, but I'll put a video in the description box down below that helped me figure out the differences between the areas. But the areas I feel like don't matter so much. What matters is figuring out where you need to commute to most often, whether that's work or like whatever you do, or wherever you need to be. If you're going to castings, be sure to look at areas to live that are close to where you'll be frequently commuting, because LA is crazy. LA, like to go a really short amount of miles can take forever because the traffic is really bad. So just try to live as close as you can to where you need to be most often, and that will help. I would suggest, if you're looking to not spend a lot of money, consider looking on the like outskirts of LA, in places that are still considered LA County, but technically they're not LA, which I'm still kind of understanding. So for example, if you wanted to live in San Gabriel Valley, that's like Alhambra, Monterey Park, San Gabriel, Temple City, Pasadena, Altadena. Pasadena is kind of expensive. That area is about 20 minutes from the city, but it's super affordable. And I'm like in that area, that's where I found my apartment. But you can find better prices there. Koreatown usually has good prices, but it's hard to find parking there. So if you are moving here without a vehicle, Koreatown is worth looking into. I heard Glendale is affordable. Glendale is totally out of my budget, but I have friends who have found apartments there for really cheap. And I also have friends who are in Long Beach, and I think Long Beach is not super expensive. Don't quote me on that because I honestly know nothing about Long Beach, but yeah, even if you want to live like on the outskirts, it's still fairly close to the city, and just do your research and figure out where you need to be, because there's nothing worse than, like, let's say you move to a city and then every day you have a 2-hour commute to get to work. Like, that is not a fun time. My next tip is to decide on whether or not you want a roommate. So when I made the decision that I was going to maybe get a roommate, I signed up for roomiematch.com. And that's like a website where they basically send you a ton of emails when someone needs a roommate, and then you can coordinate through email with the landlord to go see this space. And I saw the most beautiful condo, I think it was, townhouse, I don't know what they called it. And it was so nice. It was in Temple City. It was $1,200 for a room, but the room, like, it was a 2-story condo, beautiful kitchen. It had parking, it had a washer and dryer, like, it was so nice. So when it came down to like me narrowing it down, like my house hunters moment, it was between the condo where I would have had 2 roommates or this apartment. And I chose this apartment just because I felt like for the same price, I was able to live on my own. I'm just kind of rambling at this point, but make that decision on, are you able to live with someone else? Are you willing to live with someone else? How bad do you want to live in LA if you can't afford it on your own, because it is super expensive. If you're able to, I would suggest seeing the apartments in person and actually going into a viewing. I don't know how it's working right now with COVID. I think they're still doing apartment viewings, but seeing the apartment in person is so much different than seeing it online, because if you go in person, you can see if there's actually parking, you can see if you feel safe in the neighborhood, you can see if it's actually like what you expected, because sometimes people take really good pictures and you see the apartment and you're like, wait, this is not what I imagined at all. But if you can't see it in person, that's understandable too. Just do your research, like check crimesearch.com, crimerate.com. I'll put it in the description box down below or on the screen too. I can't remember what it was, but you can see like actively like what kind of complaints there are. Check Yelp for reviews on if there's cockroaches and whatnot. Like, just do your research if you cannot see it in person. Even if you can see it in person, do your research. Talk to the neighbors if you can. I was lucky enough, I moved here with my job, and I had coworkers who were familiar with the area, and they like kind of vetted out the areas for me, saying, oh, like I literally sent them the address and they were like, yeah, that's a nice area, you can move there. So if you know anyone who already lives here, or if you know someone who knows someone who lives here, talk to them and get their idea on, you know, what they think of the area you're thinking about moving to, if you can't see it in person. Also, if you do go in person, have your list of apartments ready. So what me and my mom did is we came here on Friday, and Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we looked at apartments all day, every day. I had it back to back to back where my viewings were scheduled, and I was ready to sign the papers that same day because, like I said, demand is really high here. So you want to be ready to like put your deposit down. I blanked on that word for a second. And you want to be ready to sign the papers, and you want to have everything you need ready to go, but like be organized, like I said, and have a list of all the apartments you want to see, and give yourself like a day maybe to think about it. When I found my apartment, me and my landlords clicked. Like they lived in Vegas. Like they were just super nice, and I was interested in that apartment, but I was weighing out this apartment in the condo, and I actually got a text from my landlord saying, hey, we're going through the applications, we didn't see yours, were you interested? And like that, like they could have easily given it to someone else because I was too slow. And I was like, oh, I'm getting my app in now, because I went back to the hotel and I was still filling out the apps. But that's how quick people were. Like people filled out the apps while they were still here. So I got lucky with the fact that like my landlords and I clicked, and like they wanted me to live here, I think. and I wanted to live here, but in most situations it would not be like that. Like, it was so funny. I went to look at one apartment. I forgot what city it was. I think it was in, I don't even remember. It must have just been in LA. And the guy was like, you all can send me your deposits and send me your applications in the mail. It was on Sunday. He was like, send it in the mail, and whoever gets it first, whoever's mail I open up first on Monday gets the apartment. He even said some people will be at his office that morning and hand deliver the mail to him to make sure they're the first app to get through, because the first app, if it passes, will get the apartment, I guess. I was like, this is crazy competitive. So just be aware that that's how some of these situations work. But his name is also like Mr. Scam or something. Like, his name was like, it was funny because he's like, I promise I'm not a scammer, but I'm like, your name is not helping you. But it just sounded like scammy, because it's like, what? Is that how it works? But that's just how it works here, apparently. My next tip is for if you come in person, either rent a car or like come with someone who can drive, or maybe drive down yourself, and just drive around different areas and look for for rent signs. Because if your list of apartments to view isn't super long, or you don't have that many options to pick from, like, it's great to just see what's available, because sometimes there's for rent signs up for apartments that aren't listed online because they know it's super competitive here and they know someone will rent it out no matter what. So just, if you can, look for additional apartments. Like, the more apartments you can see, the better. So if you do see a for rent sign, write down the numbers. I literally, my mom and I, when we came, I was taking pictures as she drove around of for rent signs, and I would call them when we got back to the hotel saying, hey, is this place still available? Like, what's the prices? And ask all the questions and see if I could schedule a viewing while I was here. My last tip is make sure you have all your documents ready, because let's say you find an apartment you love. There is nothing worse than you not being prepared, you not having your proof of income and all the other documents you need. I'll put a link in the description box down below of like what is needed, or like maybe a picture here of what is needed so you can just like save it or screenshot it. But literally this place is so competitive, and there's going to be someone looking at the apartment with you who has everything. So if you decide you want the apartment and you don't have one of the documents you need, the other person's going to get it, because you don't have time to run home and grab the documents, or run to the hotel and get the documents, or run to Kinko's and print the documents. Like, it is so competitive here. It's ridiculous, but you really just have to be prepared and organized. My last tip is don't get discouraged. It is so easy to like get frustrated or give up, because the turnaround is just so fast. And I would just say, keep looking, keep trying. There is an apartment out there for you, even if it's not your dream apartment. Like, you will find one. Like, I personally, I looked at so many apartments when I came here, and I got so discouraged because it was Sunday, and I was like, I haven't seen any apartments that will work. My mom didn't approve of them. I'm like, I'm not going to move until she approves of where I'm living, to move like across the state and whatever. And she didn't feel comfortable. I didn't feel comfortable, and it was just a whole thing. And then on Sunday, that's when I saw the condo, which was so nice. And then I also saw this apartment, and I was just like, oh my goodness, I saw so many duds. And then the last day, when I had given up and said like, I'm just gonna come back in a month or two and try again, that's when I found the apartment. So don't give up. Like, wait until you've seen everything, and then you like, don't call it quits. Like, you can always come back, or you can always try again and look for apartments again. So there's that. Okay, so those are my tips for how to find an apartment in LA. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe for more videos. I feel like because the apartment video like gained a lot of traction, I should talk more about apartment stuff. So I will be doing that moving forward. And then also let me know if I missed any tips for finding an apartment here. Like I said, I'm new, I've been here for 2 years, and there's still a lot that I don't know. So if you have any tips to share, please leave it down below. And I thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.